Thank you, everybody, for joining us for this special event of Praying Together in Jerusalem in honor of the Muslim holy month of Ramadan. We've always had a meeting, at least one gathering during Ramadan, but now that we're weekly, we can make sure that we can devote proper time, and Talib is here as well, which is wonderful. We can make sure that we can devote proper time to honoring this month and understanding more about it. And we thought it was particularly important because we've been talking about the dignity of the human person. And the dignity of the human person, I believe, even though I'm, as you know, of the Jewish faith and not the Muslim faith, I believe that it's one of the messages of Ramadan. And I hope that our teachers will share with us exactly what that might mean. So we're going to start, because here in the Holy Land, Israel, Palestine, the iftar, the breaking of the fast, is not far away and will occur during our session together or shortly afterwards. I'm going to allow the Muslims here time to leave us, and they won't necessarily stay till the end of the gathering. So I thought it would be very nice to begin with prayer today and a short teaching from Sheikh Abu Iyyad, Ibrahim Sheikh Abu Iyyad, who came last week to St. George's, but unfortunately missed our broadcast. So he has automatically, I think, become a member of our team, and we hope that we'll learn from him into the future as well as tonight. So I want to thank him and invite him, and our dear friend Qadi Muhammad Abu Obied, who has been with us for many occasions, summer schools and Praying Together in Jerusalem, has agreed to translate for us, because although I know that the Sheikh understands English and we've had conversations, he's not willing and not ready to speak in English at this time. So Tali, if you could please spotlight Sheikh Ibrahim and Muhammad Abu Obied, and then we'll have the two of them presenting for us. There's the Sheikh, thank you, and Muhammad. There we go. So Sheikh and Muhammad, you are both muted, so please both unmute yourselves so we can hear you. There we go. Thank you very much for being here, Sheikh, and please, we're learning about the dignity of the human person and the lessons from Ramadan, and you would like to offer us a teaching, and Muhammad will translate for you. Thank you.
شيخ محمد نمسان محمد أبو عبيد. شيخ محمد أبو عبيد.
تفضل يا شيخ تفضل.
بدك تترجم بعد إذنك، جزاك الله خير.
إن شاء الله إن شاء الله.
بدك يعني ترجم الجمل، أو نتكلم عن عظمة الله، ترجم لهم أنت إن شاء الله.
إن شاء الله.
طيب، أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم، بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله.
In the name of God, I praise Allah and I praise the Prophet, peace be upon him.
الله سبحانه وتعالى خلق كل البشرية، الله سبحانه وتعالى خلق البشرية حتى يعبد في هذه الأرض.
Allah has created all mankind in order to be worshipped in this land.
الله سبحانه وتعالى بعث كل الأنبياء والرسل حتى يرشدوا الناس إلى الله سبحانه وتعالى، إلى طريق الجنة.
Almighty Allah has sent all of the prophets and messengers in order to guide people to the straight path and to arrive to Jannah, to heaven.
الله سبحانه وتعالى بعث الأنبياء والرسل ليس ليعذبهم، بل حتى يكونوا فعل عليين عند الله سبحانه وتعالى.
And he sent the prophets not in order to punish them or to punish humanity. Otherwise, he sent the prophets in order to bring humanity to heaven.
الله بعث 4 كتب ب4 أنبياء حتى يكونوا مسؤولين عن جميع العالم. فبعث سيدنا داود عليه السلام، سيدنا موسى عليه السلام في كتاب التوراة، وبعث سيدنا داود في كتاب الزبور، وبعث سيدنا عيسى عليه السلام في كتاب الإنجيل، وخاتم الأنبياء سيدنا محمد في كتاب القرآن أجمل في كل الكتب.
And he gave the prophets 4 books and revealed 4 books. The book for David and the Torah, the Bible, the Old Testament for Moses, and the New Testaments for Jesus, and the Quran for Muhammad as a guidance for all the people, and not only for certain people. It's all for all the humanity and all the people on earth.
الله سبحانه وتعالى قال: وما أرسلناك إلا كافة للناس وما أرسلناك إلا رحمة للعالمين. الله سبحانه وتعالى بعث هذه الكتب، هذه الأنبياء، رحمة لجميع البشرية.
And Allah said that we have sent you for all people, and we have sent you a mercy for all people. And the prophets were sent as a mercy for the whole nations and all people.
الله بعث الأنبياء والرسل حتى ينجوا من النار وينجوا من إيدين الشيطان، حتى ينجيهم ويدلهم على الطريق الصحيح، الطريق المستقيم، حتى ينجيهم من النار ومن يدي الشيطان.
And Allah sent the prophets in order to save people from devil and from from hellfire, and to guide them to the straight path, and to get out of the heaven, of the hellfire, and to be in heaven.
الله سبحانه وتعالى بين للنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في القرآن: آمن الرسول بما أنزل إليه من ربه والمؤمنون كل آمن بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله لا نفرق بين أحد من رسله. الله سبحانه وتعالى أمر النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم والصحابة أن يؤمنوا بجميع الأنبياء وجميع الكتب والرسل.
And Allah has revealed in the Quran, telling the Prophet, peace be upon him, that the Prophet and the believers believed in one God. And they believed of what have been revealed to the Prophet Muhammad. All of them have believed in God and his angels and his books and the day of judgment. And also the companions of the prophets believed in the same thing, and all of them has worked in order to guide the humanity from to the straight path.
الله سبحانه وتعالى بين كذلك لجميع البشرية، لجميع كل بني آدم، مسؤول عن جميع العالم. فكل من يؤمن بالله أن يرشد الآخر.
And whoever believes in God have to guide the others to the right way. And we have no deviation, and we don't differentiate between one prophet or another. We believe in all the prophets the same way.
فالله سبحانه وتعالى حملنا مسؤولية الأنبياء وأعطانا أجور الأنبياء. وضحها إلى الله سبحانه وتعالى حملنا مسؤولية وعمل الأنبياء، كيف نذكر الناس بالله سبحانه وتعالى، وأعطانا أجور مثل أجور الأنبياء.
And we Muslims have the responsibilities of all the prophets. We have the burden on us to be responsible as all the prophets are responsible in front of God for the humanity. And we also have the award that Allah gives to the prophets on us. So we have the burden of the prophets to carry up Allah's message to the humanity as a whole.
الله سبحانه وتعالى أذن لنا وسمح لنا نقوم بعمل الأنبياء، نعظم الله بقلوب الناس، وأجور الأنبياء الله سبحانه وتعالى قال: ومن يطع الله والرسول فأولئك مع الذين أنعم الله عليهم من النبيين والصديقين والشهداء والصالحين. فالله سبحانه وتعالى في هذه الآية قدم الدعاء على الشهداء وعلى الصالحين. الداعي الذي يدعو إلى الله يكون في المقدمة مع الأنبياء.
And who obeys Allah and who is calling for Allah's deed, and whoever makes the works and the deeds of the prophets, he has a great award from Allah. Even his award is greater than those who fight on the sake of Allah. So those people who are talking and engaging in how to save people and how to guide people to the path of Allah have the greatest award that Allah will grant to a person. It's an award which is similar to those of the prophets and messengers.
يجب ذلك. كيف تكون الرحمة في قلوبنا؟ كيف تأتي الرحمة في قلوبنا حتى نعظم الله ونذكر الناس بالله الذي لا يعلم عن الله سبحانه وتعالى. واجب كل شخص أن يذكره بالله. الهندوسي.
For that reason, and since there is a mercy in our hearts, so we have to remind every person on earth of Allah and of to be guided to Allah and to be with Allah. So with no difference between Muslims or non-Muslims. I'm not hearing you, Peter.
Yes, thank you for your contribution in translating, and obviously the Sheikh lost connection at that point. If he returns, we'll invite him to offer a prayer, but we will move straight, if that's okay with you, straight to my conversation with you after those words of spiritual guidance. And the message that I took was that teaching or showing people the way to a relationship with Allah, with God, is a much higher form of service than other things. You know, the idea of being a role model and teaching and showing people the importance of a connection with the divine. And I think that's something that all our faiths share and is a universal message. And perhaps it's also something to do with what the dignity, we've learned this from other teachers, the dignity of the human person is connected with their relationship with God, with Allah, with the divine. So we can take that message, but I'd like to turn to you, Muhammad Abu Obied, Qadi Obied, who is as I say, a friend of Elijah and a person with whom we hold in high esteem for his work as a judge in the Islamic courts in Israel system. And you are an observer of Ramadan. It's an important month for you. And I just wondered if you would share with us, what is the importance of Ramadan for you?
Okay, thank you. And welcome everybody. It's a holy month, so I greet you on a great greeting, which is peace be upon you all. It is Ramadan is a holy month, and why it is holy actually? In the Quran, it has been mentioned that that it is holy because in Ramadan Allah has revealed the Quran to the Prophet Muhammad, and not only the Quran, but it's also have been mentioned that the other books were revealed to the prophets on the month of Ramadan, which means that Jesus and Moses and Abraham and David and every prophet has received his book from God in Ramadan. So Ramadan is holy not only for Muslims, it's holy for every human being, because the revelation of the Quran and the revelation of the books from Allah to the prophets, all the prophets, were at the time of Ramadan. Some people will say, yes, but it's not the fixed month of Ramadan that we know, but it's also Ramadan all over the years. So this is the holiness of Ramadan. And the other point, which is mentioned in the Quran, that we are fasting not because we are the first one to fast, but we are fasting like other nations who start fasting before us. So it's important that Ramadan remind us that there is a unity of revelation and unity of fasting, that every person in the world, Muslims, Christians, Jews, and others, were committed and were commanded to fast, and before Muslims start fasting. So, and it's important that Allah has made the holy month that we have to worship Allah not only with prayer but also with fasting. And fasting is a kind of worshiping. Why it's a kind of worshiping? Because to worship Allah in prayer, you have a link between you and Allah. You are linked with Allah. You are connected to Allah. But when you are fasting, you are connected to Allah through the feeling of others, through the feeling that others are suffering every day. They find no food, they find no health, they find no harmony. So you have to feel with them. And those who are weak, and the majority of the people in general, they are weak and needy. So those who are weak and needy, you have to feel with them. And whenever you feel with them, you are connecting via them to Allah. So this is the greatness of Ramadan, that you are connected with Allah, not directly between you and Him, also via those who are really needy and poor. So that will give you more spirits and holiness in order to feel that you are not enjoying your connection with Allah solely, but you have a collective connection with Allah, and that will give you more spiritual life, and that will put you in a situation that you will start thinking of the others. And that's the point. You have to think of the others. You get out of thinking of yourself that you are the one who want to be joyful with Allah, but you need to collect the others and bring them with you in order to be in connection with Allah. And the most important thing for Muslims are to be all the day, all the time, with the feeling that you are connected with the oneness of Allah. Because with Allah, with God, you will feel that you are in happiness and rest, and your behavior will be always focused. And there is someone who is judging you, someone who is watching you, and someone who is keeping you. And when you have the mercy of the one who is keeping you, which means that you are strong, because he's keeping you out of yourself, first of all, because you might be deviated, and out of the influence of others. The others means the Satan and the devil who might deviate you from the straight path, and he is keeping you and making you in safeguard of all of the mistreatment of others. So whenever you are in the heart, and your heart is connected to God, so you'll feel safe, you'll feel insecurity, and you'll feel in joy and happiness. And that's the main messages of Ramadan. So in order to feel this joy, not solely yourself, but with others, so Ramadan will bring you to share this joy and this safety with others by feeling others and by connecting to them.
It's such a beautiful message, the message of empathy. And I noticed Maureen come into our call last week. She taught us from her position of the Brahma Kumaris. And I'm sure she is nodding as she's hearing you speak, because that idea of the connection and the empathy. Can I ask you, maybe on a personal level, does it work for you? When you fast, are you able to get that feeling? Or does this remain an ideal outside your reach?
Absolutely. In order to feel and to practice such a feeling, we have also not only the fasting, we the gathering after at the time of the breaking the fast, and the gathering after that also in the mosque in order to pray together. And in Ramadan, we have a special prayer which is called Taraweeh, which means to relieve yourself. It's a time to relieve. It's prayer to relieve. And it is a long prayer, which is around 1 hour. And in this prayer, we recite the Quran and we pray all together. And you feel that your shoulder next to your fellow brother's shoulder, and so on and so on and so on. You'll find hundreds of people in the mosque, and also you'll find hundreds of thousands of people around the Kaaba praying at that time. If you see this films around the Kaaba, all these photos around the Kaaba, that millions of people are wearing white, all of them, and praying the Taraweeh prayer. And that will give you spiritual feeling that not Ramadan, it's not for you only, but it's for thousands and thousands, millions of people who are sharing this feeling at the same moment, at the same time, everywhere around the world. So you'll feel that you are not alone. There are many people who are sharing you the same feeling and the same concepts and practicing the same way in order to clean yourself and to feel that you are the same thing with others, with the poor and the needy, regardless what they believe, regardless what is their faith, that you have to feel that there's something common for the humanity, which is the empty stomach. Wherever there's somebody who's with empty stomach, that you are sharing this value with him and you are feeling his feeling. So it is not very easy thing, and it's not very easy and simple to share a common value on the basis of the needs and the necessity and the empty stomach, which is some feeling that it is common for everybody all over the world, regardless of their faith and credit and belief. So this is the point that you are sharing the same feeling of others without discrimination, and that will give you the power to take the message which have been revealed to the Prophet, that Allah has created all of us from one man and his wife, and we are all brothers, and we are created from the same one, and that will give you will bring you back to the basis, to the first man, that we all brothers and we have to treat ourselves as brothers, not as enemies.
That's the most beautiful explanation, because you answered my next question really as somebody who fasts from time to time, not for a full month, but sporadically. I know that sometimes in a fast, it's very hard to focus on what you're supposed to focus on because you're worried about eating. You can, instead of it working to elevate you above the physical, it sometimes makes you more connected with the physical. Do you have any special spiritual tools you do to lift yourself up out of the physical into the more spiritual awareness?
Yes, actually, the Prophet said, if you fast Ramadan, you should not fast only from eating and drinking. You have to fast from many things. Your eye has to fast, and your ears has to fast, and your tongue has to fast, and your hands and legs have to fast. And they said, how can? He said, your ears have to fast of hearing something bad or hearing gossips of others. Your tongue have to fast of saying rude things and bad things. You have to your tongue have always to mention the name of Allah, mention the name of God, and in that way you will not speak anything bad to others and treat them badly. And your eyes also have to fast of seeing the bad point of others. You have not to spot the others in a bad way. You have to spot them in the right way. And your hand have to fast of stealing or harming others, also your legs as well. So he said, if you fast from food and you continue harm others. So Allah he's not in need of your fasting. And the Prophet said that by this way you will bring yourself above all of life materialism, and you will start by this way forgetting the food and not thinking of the food, but you will think of cleansing your spirit. And in this way, by less talking about people, by reading more and more the holy scripts of the Quran, and by learning more and more. And we said in Ramadan it is the month of the Quran, which means that in Ramadan we leave all other books. We leave the books of fiqh, we leave the books, we only recite the Quran. And that will give us a strong spirit all the time, not to read the books of jurisprudence, for instance, jurisprudence, and where you find the arguments between scholars and others. You only read the Quran because it's more spiritual, and you leave everything else to the other months of the year, and you commit yourself to reading the Quran, praying, and especially in the last 10 days of the month. Many times many people will be engaged of leaving their family and living and stay in one place at home and all the time praying and praising Allah, or keeping most of the time in the mosque only by praying, and leaving all of the life, leaving the telephones outside, leaving the connection with the world, and be connected fully to Allah. So that's make you less engaged with thinking about food, but thinking about Allah. And the food is the way to keep you on, and not the main purpose to have like breaking the fast and to be happy. No, you have to be happy when you are breaking the fast, but it's not the purpose. The purpose is to fast and to feel the Holy Spirit, that's a spiritual life with Allah.
Look, I feel that I know you, and I know the depth of your spirituality, and I cannot thank you enough for what you've just shared with us, because it's very, very meaningful. I want to ask a question that you can say to me I don't want to answer, but I feel I have to ask it. You and I are both in the Holy Land, and we know that for Israelis, for some Israelis at least, Ramadan's a frightening time, because they feel it's a time of increased violence and discomfort for non-Muslims here. And I'm not familiar with that in other parts of the world, but certainly here. Do you have any explanation or anything you can say about why that has become the case here? And if you don't want to answer,
No problem. I'm always have the courage to answer questions, even in difficult times. I said that many of our holidays, Muslims, Christians, Jews, and others, were hijacked by the politicians, and they sometimes try to misuse our holidays. Ramadan, the point is why sometimes some of our brother Jews get frightened of Ramadan, because in Ramadan, Muslims go to the Al-Aqsa Mosque with hundreds of thousands of them. And sometimes they will find a lot of some unrest in Jerusalem, because many people came from the West Bank, many people came from inside Israel and to pray. And when you find that 300, 400,000 Muslims comes to Jerusalem at the same time, that will make sometimes unrest. So many times the security and the police will say Ramadan is very difficult because there are many people, and sometimes there are clashes and so on. But no, Ramadan in Saudi Arabia, there is no clashes. Millions of people go to the mosque, and millions of people are passing Ramadan with prayers and happiness. The same thing have to be in Israel. The situation in Israel, because there's a political unrest between the Israelis and the Palestinians, and that maybe will give this that will conclude the whole story of Ramadan, because we are in a divided world, and we have to work hard in order to be united more and make Ramadan a month of happiness. I see Ramadan in Haifa, sometimes, and in other cities, it's Ramadan. It's a month of joy, of happiness. Muslims, Jews, Christians meet together, and I find many families in other places in Israel that Muslims and Jews and Christians sit around the same table of Ramadan and eat together and talk together. I find it also in other holidays, Muslims holidays and Christian holidays. We have to make Ramadan as a month for gathering, for unity and for love, not only for Muslims, but also for everybody. And everybody have to share us this feeling. And I hope that very soon the peace will prevail here in this holy land, and people will join Ramadan happily and with joys, and will feel Ramadan as a month of God, as a month of unity, not as a month of separation, inshallah.
Inshallah. What a beautiful, thank you so much. I'm going to invite you to offer a prayer. Now, you did just now offer a prayer, but maybe another word of prayer before we release you, to allow you to spend the last hour or so of Ramadan today with your family, and then move to your iftar with your family. So if you could offer us a word of prayer,
yes,
thank you so
I
much.
will offer it. It's a verse of the Quran which says that all of you say that we have believed of what we have received from God, and what was Jesus, what was Moses, what did Moses received from God, and what did Jesus receive from God. All of them are the prophets of God, and all of them call for the straight path. We believe in them, and we believe in God, and we believe in the books, and we believe of dignity of humanity. And let's we share this belief among all of us. Let's we say, amen, that God will keep us in safety and peace and harmony, and keep all of the children of Abraham and all humanity in safety, and bring the next Ramadan where peace prevails in our land, in this holy land, and we'll find less people who are crying for food and crying for unity with their families and with the others. Let's we all, Muslims, Christian and Jews, believe that Allah and God is the one who has sent us three religions in order to guide humanity to the straight path. And I believe that if we unite, we'll find a better world very soon, inshallah. Have a nice Ramadan.
Inshallah. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Hope you have just a wonderful Ramadan Kareem from all of us here. Thank
Ramadan
you.
Kareem for all of you. Thank you, and have a nice time. I have to leave. Thank you.
Of course.
Bye-bye.
Well, thank you. We've just heard great wisdom and the prayers so beautifully spoken. We are going to move on to hear from our dear friend and member of our Elijah and Praying Together family, Fauzia, who's offered the prayer many times here in this gathering. But as some of you know, she can't be here at this hour at the moment. So we pre-recorded yesterday. We recorded her presentation for you. And Tali, if you wouldn't mind sharing our presentation of Fauzia. Fauzia, many of our participants know you. You've offered prayers many times for us, and we're very grateful to have you as part of the Elijah family and the Praying Together family. But maybe you just briefly introduce yourself, where you're from. And one of the things that I'd be really interested to hear from you is about your life as a Muslim woman. I believe you started life in a country where Islam was the predominant religion, and you've lived in places where Islam was the prominent religion. But now you're in a country, Canada, where you're a minority. So I wondered if you share something about your life, your background, and this journey being a Muslim, both in a majority Muslim country and when you're in a minority.
Well, thank you for inviting me. And it's not the drowsy part of the day yet, so I'm good. Okay, so well, thank you for inviting me. And like I just mentioned, but it might have been on mute, that it's not the drowsy part of the day just yet. So I'm good. So I was actually born in Pakistan, but from my very young childhood, I have always lived mainly in Western countries. So grew up in Europe mainly, and then as an adult, I've lived in Canada for a number of years, and also in Italy. And so most of my life actually has been as a minority in different parts of the world. The one country where I did live for a few years, where I was in the majority in terms of religion, was Saudi Arabia, where I lived for 5, 6, 7 years. So the difference, I think, especially in Canada, there is such a large community of Muslims there now that we are very fortunate that we find community, we find our prayer spaces, and there's enough people to feel that spirit of Ramadan in our community spaces. So we're very fortunate with that. When we are in a Muslim majority country, then obviously that atmosphere trickles out from the closed spaces into the marketplace, into workplaces, into everywhere. So of course it is a different feeling, but wherever one is, one can still find that spirit and live with it through the month.
So tell me about Ramadan for you, how you observe it. What is it for you?
Yeah, so over the years, I've tried to evolve my fasting of the month. As we say that there's sort of 3 levels to the fasting in the month of Ramadan. There's the ordinary level, where we refrain from eating, drinking, and intimate relations. Then there's the next level, the more sort of special level, where we restrain and are vigilant, really vigilant about our organs, our senses, what we look at, what we listen to, how we use our tongue. So that's that next level, where we're constantly vigilant of that too. So if it's the end of the day of fasting and we're hungry and we have a headache and we want to have our coffee, we won't be screaming at everybody around us. So, it's keeping that vigilance at all times. And then the third level, which is the level of the friends of God and the saintly people and the prophets, is that one where the connection with God is that is the primary thing, and all else other than God is in the back burner. and that is a very difficult level to achieve, but one can still strive for it every year. We have a whole lifetime to strive for it.
Have you had those moments during Ramadan?
Well, it does help if you are a little bit away from the normal everyday of life, especially in the last 10 nights, which are the holiest nights, in which we are told that there is one night amongst those last 10 nights which are better than 1,000 months. It is called it's sometimes called the night of power. It has other names. And so in those 10 days, many people, they strive to really remove themselves. They've had all their visitations and iftars, and they're done all of that, and they will just really focus those last 10 days and nights on worship. So yeah, I think one of the years we had the fortune of going to Spain to a retreat there during Ramadan, and I think that was one of the times where I had most that opportunity.
It was a retreat with other Muslims who were also observing the Ramadan?
Yes, there's actually a beautiful center in the what is the Andalusia province called Alquería de Rosales, and it's this place run by Spanish Muslims, and it's their hereditary mountain area, and they've built a whole center there. There's a small mosque there, and every Ramadan they have the whole month. You can come and stay there, and everything is provided, and it's wonderful.
So when you're living you know, and one of the reasons I asked you earlier about living in a minority, living in a majority, is as somebody who's lived as a minority, trying to observe a different religion from society, those holy days can be the most difficult times, because they're the times when you're trying to remove yourself from society, but society is functioning all around you all the time. Can you share with us some of the practices or the way that you help yourself feel Ramadan even when everything else is going on around you?
Right. Well, you know, I think it depends on which country you're in, and if there is sort of a sizable enough minority of Muslims there, then especially in the larger cities where that tend to be more diverse generally anyway, everywhere in the world, there's always more awareness, and you know, if you and often I think people, when you open up to them or invite them into understanding a little bit what you know, that you may not participate in the, you know, in the office lunch every day, or you might want to find a space in your office where you can maybe, you know, be alone for 10 minutes to perform your prayers. I think people, when you approach them in the right way, can be very accommodating, and they're happy to accommodate. So it just depends how you engage with people.
And share with us a bit more, how do you engage with people? What would you like to tell the non-Muslims around you about Ramadan? What do you share, and what do you think is appropriate to share?
Well, I mean, I can just give you an example. Right now, I'm here at this for a 3-month course at in the United Kingdom, and it's a very rural, isolated place here. And you know, when the teachers and the participants in the program learned that Ramadan is starting, you know, they were all very, you know, the teachers came to me and asked me, you know, tell us how we can support you. Is there, what can we do? Can we drive you to the mosque if you need to? You know, different things, and you know, just very respectful, and also some curiosity, you know, what is it, for those who weren't familiar. So I just think that, you know, people are happy to accommodate, and you know, it just depends how you engage with them.
Yes, but that's great. But what do you want to teach them? You know.
Oh, yes. Yes, right. You asked that too. So well, I think I would like to, for those who have time to listen or who would like to learn a bit more, I would like to share with them, because fasting is part of every tradition, and there are dimensions of it in all cultures. And now it's just a popular thing generally health-wise, also intermittent fasting and different fasting. So I would just share with them our method of fasting. How is it that we do it? You know, it's dusk to dawn, and no, we can't even have water in the day, but it's okay. You have a whole lifetime of training, so it's not that we're kind of suffering. It's our retreat from our daily life of food and drink, and it's really okay. You know, we're not dying, and we will survive. And sometimes people are. In fact, one of the previous attendees of this course, you know, she came here from Indonesia, and so she was all alone for the first time away from her family. And each person all the students shared the fast with her one day and broke the fast with her to give her companionship. And it's a learning experience. You know, you have to have the curiosity to want to learn what other people's worlds are, and so you share up to what somebody would like to know about, and you have to gauge that.
You know, as somebody who fasts a few times a year, you know that next Thursday we're going to be fasting too. It's the fast of Esther next Thursday. So we're going to be praying together in Jerusalem with all the Muslims and the Jews fasting. And I know that one of the concerns about that, we have some 25-hour fasts, which are a little bit different than the 12 or 14-hour fasts. But in those fasts, it's supposed to help you focus on what's more important. But sometimes it has the reverse effect. All you're thinking about is your hunger and how do you use the fast to focus on what's more important? Share your experience of when fasting works or is meaningful to you.
That's true, and I think that's when we're still in that, you know, evolving phase of being in just that first level of fasting, where fasting is just about, you know, hunger, thirst, and but you know, there's always, you know, God uses those that carrot and stick method, right? Like because He knows His creation, so there is so much reward that we are told about, that, you know, during those hours of fasting and even in the night during the month, there is so much reward for every page of the Quran you read, or every good deed you do, or every kind word you say. So I think that reward element in many people's minds is always there. You're very conscious of that during the month. So that sometimes helps you to you know, put aside your hunger and thirst, and, you know, make the most of the month in terms of all the spiritual benefit that we can obtain. And is that for you, Fauzia, is that the main thing? Is it that sense of a reward from heaven, or is there something else? I think I just the more I learn about the gems that are in this month, as I get older and I study more, you know, the reward is, it's always good to have a reward, but it also, I realize that it's the means that God provides to come closer to Him. And ultimately, that is the reward. That is the reward that we're really seeking. But, you know, in my younger years, I knew less of that. And as I grow older, you know, I'm more aware of that, and I strive more for that. And in fact, the last day of Ramadan is a very sad day. One would think that, okay, it's the day from tomorrow, we can eat and drink and we don't have to do this anymore. But actually, when we're looking for the moon of the next month, the lunar, as the Eid day, and for many people, it's a very sad feeling, because that opening that God has given for that month, you know, those doors are shutting, they're about to close, and then when you sight the moon, many people are very happy because it's Eid the next day, the feast. But many people feel a real sadness that door has now opened until the next Ramadan.
You know that our theme for this series is the dignity of the human person. And I wondered if you could share with us your thoughts on what Ramadan has to teach about the dignity of the human person.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, and I think that which came to me was it's a great opportunity to really remind myself of the golden rule. You know, the one that's in every faith and every tradition, and there are many sayings of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, that speak to that same golden rule. That you know, none of you will find the sweetness of faith until he loves for a person that which he loves for himself. So I think Ramadan offers a wonderful opportunity for us to just be very conscious of that. You know, when we are giving charity, when we are giving, sharing food with others, and are we sharing the same food that we are going to eat ourselves? Or are we, you know, I mean, that's just a small example, but it really, yeah, it helps me to think more consciously of that. And And the fact that every single person who is fasting is doing the same action, the same action, his closeness, acceptance from God, everything is for everybody is exactly the same. And so that equality of all people is very striking in that month. As it is when we see like the pilgrimage to Mecca, where every person is wearing that same 2 pieces of cloth, and there is no difference between each person. Each person has the same dignity with his Lord.
That's very beautiful. I want to ask you a question that may be difficult, and you may choose not to answer it, and I'll understand. But here in Jerusalem and in Israel in general, Ramadan is associated for non-Muslims with violence and incitement and hatred. How does that happen?
How does that happen? Well, it's very hard for me to not live that reality and speak to it. So I don't want to be disingenuous and, because I don't know if I lived in that reality, what my reactions would be. And if I theoretically say something, if I would actually be able to live that, so I don't know. But what our religion teaches us and what our Prophet, peace be upon him's example showed us was a really high bar that he set for us. And, he went through, for example, years of persecution and, blockades and all kinds of things. And his reactions to things were those we're supposed to aspire to emulate. But, we are not prophets and we are just ordinary human beings. So, there's always that thing, there are religions and the teachings of our religions and what our prophets taught us. And then there is us as the, broken human being and how much we are able to live up to those teachings. And that's that difference.
I really appreciate your words of wisdom. Fauzia, you have many times led us in prayer, and I'm going to ask you to think about, well, first of all, if there's anything else you'd like to share about Ramadan that I haven't explicitly asked that you would like to share. And after that, a prayer for us, please.
Okay. I would just like to share that, usually when Ramadan starts, it's a very joyous occasion for all Muslim communities around the world. But this year, because of the situation, particularly in Gaza, it's very heavy on the hearts of all Muslims everywhere in the world. And, I hope that we will all be able to really learn from the faith and the trust that those people have in the situation they're facing. And we will really be able to have a much more contemplative Ramadan and show our generosity, just be contemplative, but at the same time, a lot more open to giving. So in that regard, I just like to dedicate this prayer. It's a prayer I found from a mosque in Ottawa, Canada, the Rhoda Masjid. And it's a beautiful prayer, and it reminds me of across the world, the many Muslims we have found the people in Rafah area right now, and the difficulties they're going through. But when I saw yesterday that they still gathered for the evening prayers in the outdoors, and what trust and faith they have in their destiny and in God is just really inspiring. So I'd like to dedicate this prayer to those people, and that they may find ways to have a good Ramadan. So it's called the prayer of serenity, and I know there's a famous prayer of serenity by I believe it is Reinhold Niebuhr, but this is not that one, it's a different one. Okay. In the name of Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. God is enough for me. I have placed my trust in him completely. God is enough for me. I have placed my trust in him. God is enough for me. He is looking after my heart. God is enough for me. He is looking after my home. God is enough for me. He is looking after all my concerns and all that could worry me. God is enough for me. He is the strong and all-powerful, and he is protecting me. He is my shield against all harm. God is enough for me. He is the one whose power none can stand against. He is looking after me completely, and he will protect me from any scheme to hurt me. God is enough for me. He is closer to me than all my relatives. God, the one who loves me unconditionally, is enough for me in the moment of my death. God, the noble one who overlooks my errors, and the generous one who rewards my every good, is enough for me in the moment of judgment. God, the most gentle and subtle one, is enough for me the moment when my deeds are weighed before him. God, the Almighty One, is enough for me as I cross the path over the void on my way to paradise. His strength will steady and speed my way. God is enough for me. I have placed my trust in him completely. Amen.
Thank you so much. I do have to share with you that in Hebrew, in the Jewish tradition, one of the names for God is Shaddai. And Shaddai means that which is enough. And we play around with the meaning of Shaddai, but one of them is that God knows how much we human beings can tolerate. And he never tests us more than we can survive. And I think some of your words have actually related to that name of God today. We are tested, but God knows our limitations and he won't test us beyond what we're capable of responding to. And you really inspired that in me today. And I want to thank you for giving me that inspiration, which is one of the messages of Ramadan that I'll take with me. So thank you very much indeed. So thank you to Fauzia. Now it's my great pleasure to welcome Nechama Goldman Barash. Nechama taught for us a few weeks ago when we visited her institution, Pardes, in Jerusalem, and she's agreed to give a response to the teachings and then lead us in a prayer today. So Nechama, welcome and thank you.
If I could share my screen in some way, if I could be co-host, that would be helpful.
Tali, yes, I'm going to remove my spotlight from myself, put Nechama in. Where is she? There she is.
Ramadan Kareem, and blessings for peace and togetherness at this time. So I'm just going to bring a few sources that came up as I was listening that I think it's still disabled. I still can't share. That I think tie together both what Qadi Muhammad Abu Obied and Fauzia said. So I'd like to share them with you and then move into a prayer that a friend and colleague of mine, I still can't share. It's okay. I'll just read the sources. So the first source that really came to mind was from the book of Esther, because Qadi spoke about the fast and the power of the fast and the connectiveness of the fast. And that everyone joins together, rich and poor, young and old, in beseeching Muhammad, in experiencing the Ramadan together, and there's great joy in that togetherness. So the verse in when Esther in the book of Esther is facing the reality of a decree that is going to annihilate her people. she turns to the power of fast, right? And what she says is, hold on, let me try one more time because I would like to share. No, okay, I'll just read it to you and maybe drop it into the chat. Go assemble all the Jews who live in Shushan and fast in my behalf. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my maidens will observe the same fast. Then I shall go to the king, though it is contrary to the law. And if I am to perish, I shall perish. Now there, of course, it's being used towards salvation, but some of the ideas he spoke about, that sense of everyone being together in this sense of belonging and connection, by denial of food, right? That sense of the impact it has on the body, the drain it has on the body, that we're all emptying ourselves together towards a common communal good, I think very much reflects to me some of what he was talking about with regard to Ramadan. And it's falling out this year at the same time of year as our Purim holiday. And to that end, I would also like to share another idea, because Purim for us is really about, oh, there we go, thank you. But I didn't want to share the prayer yet, but thank you. You can leave that there. That's not what I wanted to share, but thank you. Is a source about masking, the idea of wearing masks. And I think this idea can really connect to what all of us is going through. The idea that there's a sense of where is God as we go through this very difficult, terrible time with tremendous suffering, this sense of God being concealed. And so the scroll of Esther is a scroll, the book of Esther. God's name does not appear in the scroll. It's all about revealing and concealing. On the deepest theological level, even God is concealed. And the rabbis stress that the very name of Esther, which has within it the idea of hiddenness, reveals God's absence, applying God's own promise to Moses that God will always be with us, even in moments of despair, of destruction, of suffering. And so really what we're called upon to do is unmask, right? Unmask God's presence. And when Fauzia talked about the outdoor prayer, this incredible emunah, this incredible belief in the Ramadan, in the prayer, in the practice, really essentially what we're all trying to do is unmask God's presence at this time and feel the closeness of God. One more idea before I end with a line from a poem. In the Tractate of Sanhedrin in the Talmud, that there's this idea that we were all created as individuals from Adam. And I want to touch on what Qadi said, right? That idea that we all descend from Adam and Eve. We all have common ancestry. And in our Talmud, we express that in the way that the Holy One, blessed be He, stamps all people with the seal of Adam, and no one is similar to the other. And because every person descends from Adam, each and every person is obligated to say, the world was created for me. As one person can be the source of all humanity, and that should impact the way we look at one another, the way we see one another. And I'm going to shift to the prayer. I'm just going to finish with something from Khalil Gibran, who was a Maronite Christian. He wrote a book called The Prophet. He was from Lebanon. And he writes as follows: a woman said, "Speak to us of joy and sorrow." And he answered, "Your joy is your sorrow unmasked. And the self-same well from which your laughter rises was oftentimes filled with your tears. And how else can it be? The deeper that sorrow carves into your being, the more joy you can contain." And so this juxtaposition of joy and sorrow, I think, is something that we're all taking with us at this time, whether it's in Ramadan, as we're aware of the suffering of the Muslims in Gaza, the Muslims and the people of Gaza, Purim, as we're aware of the suffering and mourning that has been fallen the Jews in Israel, the Israeli experience, and that we all, the fact that we can unmask sorrow to reveal joy, so that when we go into our holidays, we nonetheless push ourselves to celebrate what we have, where we are, and the tremendous hope and belief that God will unmask and show us that there is a true salvation, that there is joy that awaits us. And so now I'm going to shift to a prayer. a prayer that was written by a dear friend and colleague, Hanan Schlesinger, who brought me into interfaith dialogue through the organization Roots. I'm going to say it, and you're welcome to say it. It is here in 4 languages: Hebrew, English, German, and Arabic. It's been translated. I'm going to read it in the Hebrew, but I'm going to ask that you all pause after every. Is that okay, Pita? I can read it in the Hebrew? Okay, and people can follow along. Avinu sheba shamayim borei olam, asher yatzar kol hadam b'tzalmo. Rachem al ma'aminecha ha'mesulamim asher holichim b'darko shel Nevi'am Muhammad v'asher makdishim et chodesh ha'Ramadan hazeh l'shimcha b'tzom b'tfilah b'tikun hamidot u'b'kriya b'sifram hakadosh haKoran. Siyea b'yadam b'chodesh ha'Ramadan hazeh l'taher et libam la'avdacha be'emet. Tein shalom beinam leben atzmam, ben ish leishto, ben av ve'em liyaldehem, ben ach la'achot, uben ish l'reyehu. Azor l'tzamim l'she'enan tzamim, l'kabel ze et ze ba'ava, hakelna ala tzamim b'yamim hachamim, ha'arukim alalu, shelo yizbelu, shelo yirgezu. Scroll down a little bit more, please. Thank you. V'tein na b'libam ahava v're'ut klapei amcha Yisrael, v'ratzon amiti lahakir la'avin et amcha Yisrael, ve'et zikatenu le'eretz hazot, eretz hakadosh. V'tein gam b'libam shel amcha Yisrael, ahava v're'ut klapei amcha Yishmael, ratzon lahakir u'la'avin et amcha Yishmael, et kedushat chodesh ha'Ramadan shelahem, ve'et zikatam le'eretz hazot, eretz hakadosh. V'yedu gam hem gam anu, כי אנשים אחים אנחנו, ונתת שלום בארץ, ושמחת עולם לכל יושביהם. Amen. My apologies. I have to leave. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this, and may we continue to pray together and bring peace to the world. Shalom.
Thank you, Shalom. Thank you, Nechama. And I think that was a very beautiful and powerful response. Recognition of each other's holidays, but also this idea of sorrow and joy and the connection between them, which will of course be one of our themes in our Purim special next week. This leaves us a few minutes before we're going to complete we're going to I've gone blank on words. We're going to complete the session with a prayer from Heather from the Christian tradition, but it does leave us a few minutes if anybody would like to make a comment or response to anything they've heard, either from Nechama just now, or from the Sheikh, or the Qadi, or Fauzia, our dear friend. Would anybody like to join the conversation or make a comment? I can't say ask a question because our Muslim friends aren't here, but you could put a question on the table that we will put to Ghassan when he joins us in 2 weeks. Anybody? It's not required, but maybe there is somebody who'd like to say something. Because I saw before that Andrew made a comment in the chat about his experience of Ramadan as a Jew. Andrew, if you're still here, you might want to share your comment. No. I can't see the other people, so I'll have to leave it. In that case, it's my great pleasure to invite Heather now to offer her prayer. And maybe she wants to say something too, if you'd like to, Heather.
Well, I did want to say I was thinking about writing this prayer. And I was thinking about the space that we have created in this praying together in Jerusalem, which is I think a holy space, you could describe it, as we join together as people from different faiths who are of goodwill and want to make a difference in the world. And that's what really inspired me. I really appreciate this as a space, as a place to come. And I remove myself from meetings and places that I really ought to be in order to give this priority, because it seems so important. So thinking about that space, this is my prayer. God, call forth your people and we will respond to your call. Lead us day by day, and we will listen to your voice. When we began our prayers here in this place, we were strangers. We hardly knew each other's names. Now we are brothers and sisters, and we will never be the same. Now we have seen and we have heard that the Lord our God is great. For a wilderness has been transformed into his holy place. May the peace we experience here in this place spread as the waves of the sea wash over the shore. May all your children be at peace and love one another, and follow the example of the wise and good. Comfort us and help us. Out of the depths we cry to you. O Lord, hear our cry. And this is the blessing that comes at the end of Compline, which is the last prayer at night that Christians say. And it'll be familiar to Jews, I know. The Lord bless us and watch over us. The Lord make his face to shine upon us and be gracious to us. The Lord look kindly upon us and give us peace. Amen.
Amen. The priestly blessing, which in Israel we hear at every prayer service, but in the rest of the world, not every service. Thank you, Heather, for that beautiful contribution. And you really inspired me because of the idea that we were going to talk about sacred space and holy sites for our summer school, but we've actually changed the topic to bring it more in line with this experience on Zoom. That you've now made me realize that this experience on Zoom is also a sacred space, a holy space. And thank you for that. I feel the same way. Tali, if we could go on to gallery view for the end, that would be fantastic. Remove my spotlight and let's see everybody who's here. Thank you, everybody, for being part of this experience. I learned a great deal today, and I hope that you did too. It's very important, I think, that we share each other's holy times. And I've always appreciated with Ramadan that the idea of drawing down sanctity to this earth, if millions of people are focusing on the divine, there must be something happening for all of us. We must all benefit from that drawing down of the divine into our lives. And I hope we can feel it. I really hope that we can feel that. Let's just take 1 minute together in gratitude for being together today, and also in harmony with Muslims who in this country are right now, as we finish this praying together, this is the time that our Muslim brothers and sisters are having their iftar, finishing their fast for today. So let's feel their presence with us, and let's be in gratitude with them and with each other for just 1 minute together. Thank you for praying together in and with Jerusalem. And I look forward to seeing you next week for our Purim special. And then, please God, Easter. So may we all enjoy each other's prayers and company and have a safe and peaceful week, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Petra. Thank you, everyone.